30 seconds. Dubai was once a tiny port of 20,000 people. Today, its population surges past 4 million. And yet, viral images of empty streets from 2020 still circulate around the world. Is Dubai a ghost town? And is everybody leaving? This investigation cuts through rumor and spectacle. We follow migration data, housing permits, and daily movement to reveal what the real numbers say about demand, vacancy, and the city's future. Central question: present the claim of mass exodus and explain why it matters for investors, workers, and residents. Historical context: trace Dubai from a small port of 20,000 to a global hub built on trade, tourism, and construction. Pandemic moment: examine 2020 lockdown imagery, temporary closures, and how those scenes became viral evidence of decline. Data analysis: compare official population counts showing more than 4 million residents with housing vacancy rates and rental listings. On the ground, report from streets, neighborhoods, markets, and transport hubs to contrast empty footage with busy districts. Expert perspectives: interview economists on real estate cycles and demographers on migration, including a contrasting view from property analysts who warn of oversupply. Economic drivers: review tourism, trade, finance, and ongoing projects that continue to attract labor and capital. Visual evidence: deploy charts of population trends, housing permits, hotel occupancy, and airport passenger numbers to ground the narrative. Counter-arguments: assess rising rents, corporate relocations, and regulatory changes that could prompt departures and weigh their scale. Future implications: outline plausible scenarios for housing, labor markets, and urban planning based on current trends and policy options. Closing hook: promise an evidence-based conclusion that separates temporary disruption from long-term transformation, and pose the final question for policymakers. Imagine a skyline built in a decade, then emptied almost overnight. Glass towers stand silent, construction cranes frozen like punctuation marks in the sky, and the very idea that once drew millions now seems to flicker. This is not a rumor. This is a story of rapid transformation and sudden vulnerability. In 30 seconds, we ask, how did a city of 20,000 in 1950 become a global symbol of ambition, and what fragile choices made that rise possible? This section examines the boom and shock origins, the transformation era. It traces history, policy, and the choices that turned a creekside trading port into a global experiment in urban reinvention. Hook and opening beat: 30 seconds, tone: urgent and analytic. Start with atmospheric sound under voice, then a single declarative line. Dubai built itself faster than most cities can plan. Emphasize transformation and vulnerability. Historical context, Part 1. 20,000 people lived in the desert port in 1950. Their economy depended on pearl diving, fishing, and regional trade. Emphasize the traditional livelihoods and the creek as the city's original heart. Use archival audio and sparse narration to set contrast. Historical context, Part 2. The discovery of oil in 1966 reshaped state revenues. Oil money funded roads, schools, and an airport. Emphasize oil as the initial enabler, but note political leaders chose a different path than simple resource dependency. Policy turning point. From the 1980s, deliberate diversification accelerated. Free trade zones such as Jebel Ali opened the city to foreign investors and global shipping. Frame this as a conscious strategy to attract capital, labor, and corporations. Emphasize diversification. Demographic shift and scale. The population grew past 500,000 by 1990, and by the early 2000s, it had surged beyond 2 million. Point to migration, labor recruitment, and the multinational workforce as engines of rapid urban growth. The spectacle economy. Mega projects became both symbol and policy. The 1999 opening of the Burj Al Arab announced a new era of daring architecture. Later projects, including Palm Jumeirah and the Burj Khalifa, redefined expectations for urban ambition. Emphasize iconic architecture and brand building. Economic model and exposure describe how the city moved from resource revenue to a model based on real estate, tourism, financial services, and trade. Note that this model depended on continuous investment, cheap credit, and growing global demand. Emphasize leverage and speed. Early warning signs and structural weaknesses. Rapid growth created dependencies. A heavy real estate pipeline, migrant labor dynamics, and sensitivity to global capital flows. Point out that cranes outnumbered safety nets. Use measured statistics where available and highlight how scale magnified risk. Present-day snapshot for context. Summarize the prior boom to explain why any slowdown produces visible shocks. Emphasize that the same policies that created meteoric growth also concentrated exposure in a few sectors. Expert perspectives to pursue in the documentary. Interview economists who study city scale and sovereign finance, urban planners who worked on free trade zones, and labor rights specialists with first-hand accounts. Suggested questions. How much of the city's GDP relied on continuous real estate expansion? What contingency planning existed for capital retrenchment? Emphasize authority and experience. Contrasting viewpoint. Seek a government or planning official who will explain the strategic rationale, why bold projects were necessary to diversify, and how those projects attracted talent and business. Frame this as balancing ambition with accountability. Archival and visual elements to source. Old footage of pearl diving and creek markets. News footage of the 1966 oil discovery. Construction time-lapse of the Burj Al Arab and Palm Jumeirah. Aerials of cranes and construction density. Use maps to show population growth trajectories. Data and statistics to verify on screen. Historical population numbers, dates of key infrastructure projects. Timelines for free zone establishment, measures of construction lending and debt exposure, and tourism and hospitality occupancy trends. Use precise figures and read them naturally in narration. Narrative beats for this 12-minute segment. Begin with human scale memory, then move to the oil inflection, then to policy choice and scale, then to the spectacle economy, and close with the vulnerabilities that set the stage for shock. Each beat should last roughly 1 to 2 minutes, with supporting interviews and archival material. Transition to next section. End with a crisp line that pivots audience attention. The same drive that built Dubai also created the conditions for crisis. Prepare the viewer for the investigation of what happened when capital and confidence reversed course. In early 2020, the world watched as Dubai's airport district emptied almost overnight. Flights were grounded, and travel bans sealed borders. In the neighborhoods surrounding Dubai International Airport, vacancy rates soared, reaching as high as 30% in some compounds. Streets that once buzzed with taxis and travelers stood eerily silent. Social media clips of deserted highways and shuttered storefronts spread quickly, fueling rumors that Dubai's boom had finally gone bust. The myth of a ghost town took root in these images. Empty towers, abandoned lobbies, and rows of parked taxis with nowhere to go. But this moment of stillness was not unique to Dubai. Global lockdowns had frozen cities from New York to Mumbai, each one caught in the same web of uncertainty. For Dubai, the shock was sharp but brief. Emirates Airlines, the city's pride, announced thousands of furloughs and layoffs. Apartment blocks near the airport lost tenants almost overnight, their windows dark against the skyline. Yet even as vacancy peaked, the city's core infrastructure kept running. Water and power flowed. Construction cranes paused, but did not vanish. The emptiness of 2020 became a powerful image replayed in countless viral videos. It is here that the myth of Dubai as a ghost town found its strongest fuel. One dramatic snapshot frozen in time, waiting to be challenged by the facts that would follow. Killer hook. 30 seconds. They say Dubai is a ghost town, that everybody is leaving. Late 2025, the city population clock passed 4 million. By November, the Dubai Statistics Center recorded 4,044,273 residents. An average of 470 new arrivals came each day. In 1 month, 17,660 people were added, for an annual growth rate of 4.47%, the fastest on record. Viral videos show empty towers. The numbers show growth, not collapse. Documentary length, 12 minutes. Overall tone, serious and analytical. Focus on present-day metrics and what the data actually means. Structure and timing. 0 minutes to 0 minutes, 30 seconds. Killer hook. Visual contrast between viral footage and live data. 0 minutes 30 seconds to 2 minutes. Setup and thesis. State the question, clear framing. Is Dubai empty, or is the story different? Introduce data source, the Dubai Statistics Center, and the real-time population clock as the primary metric. Emphasize trust and timeliness. 2 minutes to 4 minutes, historical context. Brief overview of rapid growth over recent decades, major development phases, and policy shifts that enabled large expatriate inflows. Highlight 2 historical turning points that set the stage for today's surge. Keep this concise, connecting history to present data. 4 minutes to 8 minutes, present day. Metrics, population surge. Primary segment, detailed outline and beats, key opening beat. Reframe the narrative. Empty towers are anecdote. The statistics are systematic. The real-time population clock ticked past 4 million, and official records list 4,044,273 residents in November, a figure that matters. Data highlights, spoken clearly with emphasis on scale and trend. Population total, 4,044,273, reported by the Dubai Statistics Center. This is the working population count for the city. Average daily arrivals, 470 new residents per day, reflecting continuous inflow. Monthly addition, 17,660 people added in 1 month, a pulse indicator of momentum. Annual growth rate, 4.47%, the fastest growth rate on record for Dubai. Expatriate share, nearly 88% of the population are expatriates. Major source countries include India, the United Kingdom, and Russia, among others. Interpretation and context. The influx is not only a post-pandemic rebound, net migration has outpaced departures over the past year, sustaining population growth. Each new resident increases demand on housing, schools, and infrastructure, and also signals market confidence. Sources and reliability. The real-time population clock, updated daily by the Dubai Statistics Center, is the most reliable measure of who lives within the city limits. Use it as the data backbone in visual graphics. Visual and data elements. Animated population clock, counting up to 4,044,273. Graph of monthly net migration, showing the recent surge, with a clear annotation for the month that added 17,660 people. Map of origin countries with callouts for India, the United Kingdom, and Russia. Infographic of population composition showing nearly 88% expatriates. Interview subjects and sound bites. Representative from the Dubai Statistics Center to explain methodology and the meaning of the population clock. Local economist to discuss market resilience and the implications of 4.47% annual growth. Urban planner to explain infrastructure strain and planning responses for housing and schools. Contrasting voice, a journalist or resident who describes the viral empty tower imagery to acknowledge perception versus measurement. Suggested interview questions. How is the population clock calculated, and why is it updated daily? What explains the surge of 470 arrivals per day in practical terms, jobs, visas, or policy incentives? How does a single month adding 17,660 people affect housing markets and public services? Does rapid growth at 4.47% create vulnerabilities? And what are the mitigation plans? Narration beats and emphasis. State the raw numbers plainly, then pause. Emphasize resilience when discussing economic signals. Emphasize challenge when discussing housing and infrastructure. 8 minutes to 10 minutes. Expert perspectives and contrast. Bring together statements from economists, urban planners, and independent analysts. Show how authorities present data as evidence of resilience, and balance that with concerns about sustainability and localized vacancies. 10 minutes to 12 minutes, future implications and closing synthesis. Project short-term trends based on current migration patterns. Outline potential outcomes for the housing market and public services, and conclude with a clear answer to the opening question. The data shows a city growing, not emptying, but growth brings both opportunity and management challenges. Execution notes and voice direction. Keep narration measured and authoritative. Use 1 or 2 capital words per paragraph for emphasis, such as resilience, growth, or population. Avoid sensationalism. Let the numbers lead the argument. Where possible, read exact figures rather than rounded approximations for transparency. Editorial checklist before final edit. Verify the Dubai Statistics Center numbers and the date stamp for late 2025. Confirm the monthly and annual growth figures with the primary source. Lock on interview confirmations and timestamps for the population clock footage. End of outline. A 30-second hook. Dubai is not empty, but the numbers are striking. In the last 2 years, developers launched 152,000 new housing units. Only 21% have been completed, roughly 31,000 homes ready for occupancy by January 2026. The rest remain delayed, squeezed by supply chain bottlenecks and the speed of new arrivals. Each day, roughly 470 newcomers compete for housing in a market already under pressure. This is a housing story about supply, demand, and what happens when growth outpaces delivery. Overview, setting the scene for a 12-minute investigation. We explain why housing pressure matters, and how a city can feel both booming and constrained at the same time. Key questions, data sources, and the central claim are introduced. Present-day metrics. Housing pressure. Developers launched 152,000 units in the past 2 years. Completion rates are low. Only 21% have been completed. About 31,000 homes ready by January 2026. The remainder are delayed in the construction pipeline. Delays come from supply chain bottlenecks and the rapid pace of population arrivals. The result is a persistent shortfall of ready homes. Daily demand snapshot. On average, roughly 470 newcomers seek housing each day. That inflow intensifies competition for available units and pushes rents higher in many segments. Utilities and occupancy data. Public utility records are limited, but private audits show steady water and electricity usage in key districts such as Dubai Marina and Business Bay. Occupancy rates in those districts have rebounded to 85 to 90% since 2022. Mid-market apartments and newly built villas remain in highest demand. Older or poorly located properties experience longer vacancy spells. Demographic vulnerability. Demographers point to a long-term trend. The fertility rate among UAE citizens has dropped to 2.9 births per woman. Total births in Dubai fell from over 92,000 in 2021 to just under 79,000 in 2025, while the city's overall headcount continues to climb. That pattern signals growing reliance on expatriate inflows to sustain population growth, and it raises questions about demographic resilience over decades. Market shift. Where the market was once defined by oversupply, completion rates now lag behind population surges. The strain shows up as rising rents and fierce competition for available homes. For some observers, these pressures confirm Dubai's enduring magnetism. For others, they are a warning that rapid expansion can mask underlying fragilities. Evidence and sources to present on screen. Use charts showing units launched versus completions, a timeline of project delays, a bar chart of occupancy by district, and a line chart of births and total population. Cite developer release figures, private utility audits, and demographic reports. Interviews and expert voices. include a housing economist to explain completion bottlenecks, a demographer to discuss fertility and migration, a developer to explain supply chain constraints, and a resident facing housing competition. Balance the narrative with a contrasting viewpoint that sees market correction and long-term demand resilience. Visuals and pacing. B-roll of construction sites, gated residential towers, rental listings, busy moving vans, and quiet vacant units. Overlay key figures in spoken form. Allow pauses after major numbers for emphasis. Conclusion of this section. Summarize the present-day picture. A city still growing, a housing pipeline with many unfinished units, and a market where daily inflows create fierce competition. Emphasize the central tension, housing delivered too slowly to meet current demand, and the long-term question of demographic dependency on expatriate arrivals. Urban planners in Dubai are mapping a future that runs to 2030 and beyond, anchored by a population goal of 5 million residents. Their blueprints point to strategic growth, focused on new neighborhoods, transport links, and business districts. The Dubai 2040 Urban Master Plan, launched in 2021, lays out a vision of sustainable growth, with vertical neighborhoods, green corridors, and new business hubs designed to absorb a swelling tide of newcomers. Over the next 2 years, developers are set to deliver 100,000 new homes, with mid-market apartments and townhouses at the center of this expansion. These projects target the daily demand created by hundreds of new residents arriving each day, aiming to keep pace with one of the world's fastest-growing cities. Real estate consultancies point to the absorption power of Dubai's mid-market, where units are snapped up nearly as quickly as they are completed. For planners, this is more than optimism. It is a bet on the city's staying power, fueled by long-term visas, tax incentives, and a steady influx of talent from around the globe. If targets hold, Dubai's population will reach 5 million by the end of the decade, supported by infrastructure already in motion. The master plan's milestones are not just numbers. They are a statement of confidence that the city's growth story is far from over. Dubai's momentum depends on a delicate balance. Nearly 9 out of 10 residents are expatriates, drawn by opportunity but tethered to the city by work permits and economic stability. When global demand falters, or when companies tighten their belts, the effects ripple quickly through Dubai's workforce. In 2020, thousands of aviation and hospitality jobs vanished within weeks, exposing how quickly fortunes can turn. Analysts warn that reliance on external demand and migrant labor leaves the city exposed to shocks beyond its control. Economic slowdowns in Europe or Asia can trigger sudden outflows as workers depart and apartments empty almost overnight. The housing market, already strained by rapid growth, can swing from shortage to surplus if migration patterns shift. Real estate consultants and risk analysts echo a common refrain. Dubai's resilience is impressive, but its future is closely tied to the choices of people who can leave as easily as they arrive. The city's continued success depends on its ability to weather the next unexpected storm. Today, Dubai's population continues to climb, with official data showing record highs and demand outpacing supply. Viral myths of a mass exodus are fading, but the reality is rapid urban growth that strains infrastructure and public policy. This growth creates immediate operational challenges and forces difficult choices about housing, transport, and services. What comes next is not an exodus. The central question is whether Dubai can sustain a city that is growing faster than the world can watch. The outcome will depend on policy choices, targeted investment in services, and social cohesion. We must measure evidence, track trends, and judge progress by outcomes rather than by rumor. Share your perspective.